Welcome to day 3 of our groundbreaking coverage on WCSN of the 2007 FIG Artistic Gymnastics World Championships, live from Stuttgart, Germany. My name is Bart Connor, and I'm proud to be joined by Raj Bhavsar, two-time world medalist for the United States and former member of the national team, as we see the introduction of the top 24 all-around performers in the world who have qualified through to this all-around final. Today we'll be seeing 6 hours of coverage here live on WCSN, 3 hours of coverage of the men's all-around final, and then after a short break, 3 hours of coverage of the women's all-around final. So for many gymnastics experts, two of the most coveted of all awards in gymnastics, the all-around championship at stake today for the men and the women. There are 4 groups of 6 athletes. They will be competing on 4 events at a time. You're looking at the top group of performers, including Hiroyuki Tomita of Japan and Yang Wei next to him of China. The two most recent world all-around champions. Expect that the competition may come down to those two, battling for gold and silver. Raj, it's going to be a big day of gymnastics, my friend.
It is, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Fabian Hambuchen, the bronze medalist at last year's World Championships and an enormously popular gymnast.
Got to be a crowd favorite.
He is, and he helped, of course, Germany secure that bronze medal position in the team competition yesterday in front of this adoring home crowd. So the athletes will get what they call the one-touch warm-up, where everybody will get a chance to feel the apparatus and make their final preparations before we start this all-around competition. So an incredible day on hand here at WCSN. Don't go away, folks. The all-around final for the men coming up. We are back live from Stuttgart as the final preparations take place to get ready to start the all-around final for the men. The top 24 all-around gymnasts in the world based on their qualifying. Of course, yesterday's team final, very thrilling. The Chinese team earning the gold, the Japanese team the silver, and the host German team the bronze. The American men finished just a little more than a point behind bronze medal position in third, and there will be medals awarded today as we get set on the pommel horse. Yuri Ryazanov from Russia will be first to go.
There at the beginning of that pommel horse routine is that flop sequence right into a woo travel down the horse. That travel there is called a Magyar. You can kind of notice some leg separations there. Again, those are going to be minor errors.
In this day and age of specialization in men's gymnastics, you're seeing fewer and fewer really balanced all-around gymnasts. So this is the look at the best 24 in the world. There's this transfer down to the end of the horse. That's
an important note, Bart. In fact, you know, what you tend to see is a gymnast that is almost exceptional on three events or 2 events, and the other events are kind of just fillers. Some of these gymnasts, however, are very well balanced on every event.
That is true. There are probably about 6 or 7 gymnasts here who are realistically contenders for medals. Maxim Divyotsky, the Russian now on the floor exercise. The athletes are seeded in this competition based on their qualifications. So the top 6 all-arounders compete together, and they get the benefit of going in what's called Olympic order. And this group right here on floor is that group of top 6, which includes Divyotsky, Fabian Hambuchen, Hisashi Mizutori of Japan, Tomita of Japan, Yang Wei of China, and Liang Liang of China. So it's likely the gold, silver, and bronze medalist will come from this group of 6. The second-tier gymnasts start on the pommel horse, the third tier on the rings, and the fourth tier on vault. It's important to note right away at the top of the competition that because vaulting is typically the highest scoring event, the standings in this competition will look a little strange until everybody's vaulted, because it's likely that the leaders in the all-around will come from the group that is least expected to challenge, and that is the 4th best group. They're opening up on the highest scoring event. So instead of seeing Yang Wei and Hiroyuki Tomita at the top of the leaderboard in the first rotation, it's likely we won't see their names surface until 3 or 4 rotations into today's competition.
That's right, Bart. Not only will those vaulters be slightly ahead of the rest of the field, but guys that are starting on events such as pommel horse, or even floor exercise for that fact, are going to be a shade lower and going to have to play catch up a little bit as the competition carries on.
Philippe Boy now from Germany on the pommel horse. They're probably all a little bit exhausted from yesterday's men's team final competition.
And that's a little bit different from what they've done in the past. Usually there's just a 24-hour break between the 2 competitions.
I'm a little surprised at that, because the women's team final was the previous day. You would think if they were considering the athletes' recovery period that they would have the women's all-around final first and the men's second. But I have a feeling, since women's gymnastics is more popular on a global scale than men's gymnastics, it's likely that they hold the women for the prime time television audience in the evening, and they sacrifice the men once again. Philippe Boy, he looks tired, and he's just getting started.
I can only imagine, you know, the whole competition, it takes so much out of you. For these guys to come back and do it all over again the next day, really putting your body through a lot.
And there's an emotional aspect to it, because you've been a part of some great teams, Raj, and you get so jacked up.
Absolutely.
Because for the guys, the individual accolades are great, but there's nothing like being a part of that team battle, is there?
Nothing like the team, and after having a successful night like Germany here, you're just so elated. You're going through such an emotional roller coaster. Then you have to compete less than 24 hours later. And this is one of his best events. Notice some guys are spending less time in the corners doing the transitions because they need to squeeze in possibly 6 passes within 70 seconds.
Big difference from when I was competing, where we did basically 4 passes in the same amount of time.
Right.
I think they should extend the floor routine at least 10, 15 seconds to give them more time to finish.
I agree.
What do you think?
Yeah. Some of these gymnasts look very rushed because they know that bell is coming.
Fabian Hambuchen, the 19-year-old, in his 4th World Championship competition. He's the defending all-around bronze medalist from last year's World Championships, where he had one of those days that is like where he stuck everything last year in Aarhus, Denmark. Even the look on his face was like, wow, I can't believe what a day I'm having.
Yeah.
And we saw that intensity yesterday in the team final. Off to a good start there, but he looks a little worn out too. And we're just going to
say, you know, I'm starting to see an underlying theme here that yesterday's competition took a lot out of these guys. You could see it in their face.
And you can see it in their landings. There isn't the same level of intensity.
Right.
Remember the first time we saw this young man in the Junior European Championships back in 2004. We said, oh, he has a potential. And in particular on floor, high bar.
Coached by his father.
Wolfgang Hambuchen. It'll be an interesting test for these gymnasts today because they definitely look like they haven't quite fully recovered from last night's team final. So everyone's in the same boat.
That's normal, Bart. In fact, you can't expect yourself to recover 24 hours after a competition, especially something as mentally and physically challenging as a 3-up, 3-count team finals competition. So,
for the United States, Jonathan Horton now on the pommel horse, and for him, usually his fate in the all-around relies on how well he's going to do right here.
Right.
Pommel horse, the weakest event for Horton.
This is one of those events that he just gets up there, swings as clean as he can, and not too much difficulty in the routine. But as long as he stays on and no large errors, should score in the 14s and moves on to the rest of his events. And he's doing pretty well here. No large errors, a little bit of minor hesitations and bobbles. That's actually an E dismount. Did more than a 360 degree pirouetting travel down the horse. So will be awarded the E for that.
Horton have to be pleased because he comes into the rings, which is one of his best events next. And there's always a sense of relief to get through a respectable pommel horse routine because he knows that almost everything else he is quite confident on.
Right. Rings will be interesting today, as I know the guys are tired when trying to push yourself through these harder ring routines.
Curious about that pirouetting skill. You start to pirouette, and it looked like he even chose during that skill to say, "Oh, I can make one more half pirouette here."
Right.
How many times are you up there going, "I'll pirouette until I'm off"?
Well, generally, I mean, there is such a thing as too much pirouetting. So, right around a full pirouette down the horse is what you want to stick with.
Right.
Some of the D dismounts include just half pirouettes. But, most of the dismounts you'll see today include some sort of pirouetting travel down the horse.
You mentioned D-level skills. The skills are ranked from A to F.
Right.
You get 1/10 of a point for every A move, the easiest move, up through the F skill, which is worth 6/10 of a point. Pommel horse is one of those events where there is no connection bonus available. On floor, you do have the possibility for connection bonus.
And that's where some of these events differ. Floor, there is connection bonus. You'll see a lot of two-skill tumbling passes, D's plus B's, C's and C's connect. Mainly the connection bonus points are 1 and 2 connections. And these gymnasts are just sailing through these passes.
Mizutori, the 27-year-old from Shizuoka, Japan. Did not expect to compete here. And when the Japanese team had injury to Takehiro Kashima, broke his hand on the pommel horse while training here, Mizutori got the call and already come away with a team silver medal, and who knows, maybe all-around medal as well.
That's right. He's really answered that call well.
Qualified third into this all-around final, so he should contend for one of the medals today. 13.975 for Jonathan Horton. You said his hope is to get around 14 or a little bit more, so
that's generally right. Maybe just a shade lower than what he's capable of and what he's done here. But I know he's thinking, I'll take it, and on to the rest of the events.
Scored a 14.15 in the qualifying rounds. Rafael Martinez now of Spain. A 23-year-old from Madrid. 2 years ago, he won the all-around at the European Championships. And then last year, he was 10th at the Worlds.
And this is actually a very good routine, very clean, nice rhythm to it, and he flies right up into that dismount. I think he's going to like that. That's a really great start for him.
He doesn't look as gassed as some of the other guys do. So, Mizutori score 15.5. Respectable floor score. He had a 15.7 in the qualifying session. Tomita now will take to the floor.
This is one of my favorite gymnasts. He's got such a class look to him. His lines are very clean, and he never seems to take the easy way out in terms of difficulty. Does the hardest elements and does them well.
Last year's World Championships, he's second in the all-around to Yang Wei of China.
Uh-oh. That's definitely a miss. He was supposed to do a third tumbling skill out of that. More than likely a Rudy. Oh. Looks like he's struggling here on the floor. Honestly, just looks tired. His feet are out in front of him on a lot of these tumbling passes, which stops his forward momentum.
I think you're right. That will be a running theme today, is who has the endurance to do two full all-around competitions back-to-back, coming off of last night's team final and now today's all-around final. There's no question he just looks gassed.
He looks gassed, and you can see it in these faces that they're honestly not very happy that they're having to do this 24 hours later.
Less than 24 hours.
Less than 24 hours. But these guys are soldiers, and
even there, you know, a 1 in 3, which is not terribly difficult for him normally. He was short of rotation. Well, the former world champion and silver medalist last year looking shaky in this. Oh, he just looks tired.
Yeah.
Rafael Martinez, 14.825. Pretty good score on the pommel horse. There's 4 events going on simultaneously. We have not seen performances from the athletes on the rings or the vault yet. Television is electing to stay with the top 2 groups, who are likely to be the medalists. Răzvan Salariu now, Romania.
Generally, the Romanians are known for swinging some exceptional horse. You'll notice a different body style about him.
Yeah, Salariu, a big guy. Their most notable pommel horse champion of many years, Marius Urzica, a very slightly built gymnast, but Olympic and world champion many times over, no longer here on the Romanian team. And in fact, they're also missing, there's one of those dismounts. They're also missing Marian Dragulescu, who normally is a factor in the team all-around and individual event finals, but while training here in Stuttgart, suffered a fractured vertebra in his back while practicing his tumbling skills, and so he is on the sidelines. 14.225 for Tomita, which is more than 7 points behind, 7/10 of a point behind what he scored in the qualifying round. So today might be one of those days where you're just going to have to gut through and get the best you can out of it. Yang Wei now, the favorite to win. He realizes the door is open here. If Tomita is not at his best form.
Oh, yeah. He has clearly been the all-around leader within the community for the last year up to this point, and probably will stay there going into next year's Olympic Games.
He's the one guy so far who doesn't look gassed. He seems to be crisp and sharp still.
I think he brought his briefcase, and he's all business today.
Now, you trained for this. It's not like the gentleman didn't know about this program. So it's likely that several times they, in training, did a full competition, and then within less than 24 hours did a full competition again. They've known about this schedule for a long time. You would do that, wouldn't you?
That's absolutely right. Physically, the best way to prepare yourself is to mock the format of the competition. I'm sure a lot of these gymnasts were in the gym, completed a 1-on-6 type workout, and then did it again the next day. But even doing that in physical training, there's only so close you can get to competition. And when you're actually going through the competition, such as team finals last night, all the senses are awake, you're alive, adrenaline's rushing, asking your body for the absolute maximum, and then you have to come out and do it 24 hours later.
Yang Wei, on many levels, considered the favorite to win here. The most important level these days, according to the current rules, is the start value scores. And if you just compare the start value scores with the top athletes, Yang Wei, if you add up all of his start values, has a 39.7. Mizutori from Japan, a 38.5, and Tomita, 38.2. So if you just compared Yang Wei and Hiroyuki Tomita, Yang Wei has a 1.5 advantage based on just his start value going into this competition, which means that he could suffer a fall and still likely stay ahead of someone like Tomita or Mizutori. So the Chinese athletes so well prepared and so competent that the design of their routines allow them a little more flexibility in terms of execution errors or mistakes.
That's right, and I truly believe that they planned for that well in advance, that they wanted to go the other route in terms of throw a little bit more of the difficulty, and they are known as execution masters in certain areas, so they can get away with some big numbers in terms of how it all balances out. Some of these other gymnasts shave some of the difficulty out of their routines so they can stay cleaner.
15.35 for Yang Wei. He scored only a 14.8 in the qualifying round, so he looks fantastic in the first round. 14.375 for Salario. It's interesting to note that the Olympic champion Paul Ham, probably watching back home, has already calculated his start values, and I don't know the relative numbers, but against someone like Yang Wei, he has already looked at the relative performance level, realizing that if Paul hopes to contend for an Olympic gold medal again in the all-around, that he'll have to do it on clean form and execution, because in terms of just start value scores, he gives up a substantial amount to Yang Wei, as does most of the rest of the world.
That's right, and there's not many gymnasts that could give Yang Wei a run for his money, but Paul is a very overall balanced gymnast and puts it all together. I think it would make for a great competition next year.
We wish Paul and Morgan Ham and you, Raj, and several of the other gentlemen, Sean Townsend and Blaine Wilson, the best in their preparations and your preparations for the Olympics next year.
Thank you, Bart.
It's a deep U.S. team, and it's going to be a battle to see who gets the honor of representing the U.S. in the Olympics. You were an alternate last time, and I know it'd be very meaningful to be a part of that team in 2008.
Absolutely. Especially after seeing what fellow teammates did here at this World Championship.
That was inspiring, wasn't it?
Very much so. Redeemed themselves from that 13th place finish. Nice full twisting double layout. Just lands as if it's nothing. Sticks it cold. Oh,
a little short.
A little short. That's a very difficult tumbling pass.
When you're tired?
Especially when you're tired. You can see it in a lot of these gymnast faces that today is going to be hard work. There's certain days in gymnastics where a lot of the elements and the routines kind of just come naturally and feel easy. And then there's some days where you consciously have to push your body to that next level.
That whistle you hear in the background signals that he has 10 seconds with which to complete his exercise.
Nice 2.5 dismount. A little bit of leg separation during the twisting elements there. I believe the judges will catch eye of that.
This is his favorite event, and he qualified 6th into the all-around final today. And it looks to me, just for a straw poll test here, that the Chinese are well prepared for the endurance that it's going to have to take to get through 2 days of competition. The other athletes don't look quite as fresh today.
I was just going to note that Chinese look like they've prepared for all elements of this competition and are leaving no stone unturned. So my hat's off to them. It'll be interesting to see the remainder of their routines at this World Championships.
Lang Fu Liang will come back with the standings and a look back as Flavius Koshi's 15.275, a very good score on the pommel horse for Romania. We'll also get a highlight of some of the other performances that we did not see from that first rotation when we come back. Welcome back to Stuttgart. Quick recap on some of the performances in the first rotation that we did not see. Philippe Ude. A couple of hops for the Croatian 21-year-old on that Sukahara with a double twist. He qualified 21st to the all-around final here. His best events are floor and pommel horse. A 15.725 on what is considered among the highest scoring apparatus allows Philippe Ude to currently sit 3rd place in the all-around. Liang Fu Liang, 15.85 for that excellent performance on the floor. He had to gut it through on this combination tumbling pass, but he did exceptionally well with that complex sequence. Good enough to get a solid score on the floor. Yang Tae-Jung opened up on the vault. Very nice 2.5 twister. Good execution. One step there. A vault that has a 6.6 degree of difficulty. A 16.1 on the high scoring vault. Yang Tae-Jung will be the leader in the all-around, as can be expected after the first rotation. So there are the top 8, folks. Yang Tae-Jung, Lang Fu Liang, Philippe Ude, the top 3. As the athletes warm up and we get set for rotation 2 of 6. The all-around finals here in Stuttgart. A lot of great gymnastics coming up. Don't go away. We're back live from Stuttgart as Philippe Boy of Germany gets set for the 2nd of 6 rotations. He moves to the rings, and the top group of all-around performers will be on the pommel horse in this rotation. Philippe Boy, the 20-year-old from Blumenhagen, Germany, qualified 10th into this all-around final. He's a tall, lanky gymnast, and typically this is the kind of body style that does not lend itself well to strength on rings.
And, you know, I was just going to mention that rings is one of those events that's kind of make or break. You're either strong, very, very strong, or it's very, very difficult for you to get a higher score on rings. A lot of these guys, instead of the strength that they could possibly do, they opt to do a lot of swinging type elements, fulfill their requirements, and get their bonus from giant swings or Yamawakis, etc.
The only way to get connection bonus on rings is going from a lower to a higher strength position. So if you just don't have the big strength, it's hard to expect a big score.
Yeah, it really is. You almost put a ceiling on yourself. focus too much on the swinging type elements. In order to get a big score on rings, you just have to be strong.
You can see the amount of strain on his face as he's holding the best he can those strength moves. Raj, strength moves, one of your fortes, but boy, it takes a toll on the body. As you see, 14.225, the score for Fabian Hambuchen. Not great. We did not see his routine. It was going on at the same time as Philippe Boy. Hambuchen scored a 14.4 in the qualifying round, so pretty much on par for what he is expected to do.
Pommel horse is another one of those medium scoring events. You're not going to see scores dramatically high. In fact, probably any score in the 15s today is going to be considered very good. Even the high 14s is a good score on pommel horse. Mizutori looking exceptionally clean here.
For events like the rings and vault, you know, a good score is 16 points.
That's right.
The highest score so far today, 15.275.
Und ich wollte Ihnen noch die Wertung von Fabian Hambuchen nachtragen. Am Pauschenpferd 14,2.
The scissor elements there. Judges are looking for your amplitude above the pommels.
Mizutori and his teammate Tomita finished 1-2 in the all-around at the 2005 World Championships, and expect that he will be right up there at the end of today's competition.
I'm sure he will.
Pretty clean start from Mizutori, on target. Philippe Boy, a 14.875, as can be expected, not a score in the range of 16 points that you're going to see from someone like Yang Wei of China.
Right.
Jonathan Horton will be next on the rings for the United States.
And this is one of his better events. Let's see how he's feeling today, though. Last night's competition could have taken a lot out of him.
The U.S. men placed fourth in the team competition, just out of the medals, and
here's
Horton
one of those
big factor.
Strength elements pushing up into that gains the connection bonus of 1/10. And he's actually looking pretty strong. Nice Maltese position there. Judges want to see you get to that position as quick as you can and then hold it for 2 seconds.
Yeah, if you get near to the position and then lower it, you won't get full credit, will you?
No, you won't. Just a dismount away from a good routine here.
Horton, one of two U.S. gymnasts in the all-around final today. David Durrani also qualified. He was a reserve. Nice landing.
Nice.
Durrani was a reserve, but Bulgarian Jordan Jovchev, who qualified in 13th place in the all-around, decided to rest himself for a shot at an Olympic or a world medal on the rings later on this week. So he pulled himself out of the all-around, and that allowed David Durrani to step up from the alternate position into the lineup today. Good for the American team. 14.975 for Mizutori.
And that's
a half a point better than his qualifying.
Really? Good for him. Much deserved. It was a clean routine. And here's the gymnastics action figure, as I like to call him.
Let's see if he can recover from a subpar floor performance.
This is a flop sequence we like to call. Oh, he is struggling a little bit there. Oh, man. He just looks gassed.
He does.
You can see it, Bart.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. You rarely see that.
That's just, you know, we've been there. You know what that feels like. It's just, and as hard as gymnastics is these days, when you go in the gym and you just know it's not there, it's ugly and painful to watch.
And he's feeling it now.
Oh.
You know.
Whatever sense of enthusiasm he had for today's all-around final just looks to be gone.
And if you got a chance to talk to these guys about what's hurting them right now, probably get a laundry list of joints and muscles that ache. And Tomita, one of the older gymnasts.
You know what I don't really like about this? I surely there was a lot of consideration as to what is the optimal schedule for this competition in terms of competition, but at some point it just looks like a bad decision by the host organizers to try to demand that these gentlemen go through 2 full competitions.
You know, and I agree with
in less than 24-hour period of time.
And outside of the media standpoint and outside of the competition itself, the organizing committee has to look at what's safe for these athletes, take that into consideration. And gymnasts put their lives on the line.
And it's not like we're looking at, you know, mediocre gymnasts.
Is the best
we're
of the
looking at
best.
the best and the best. And
if you see the best of the best tired, then it's a strong indicator that maybe we should look outside of the competition to see what's causing this. That in combination with how difficult and long these routines are these days.
Now in the team final yesterday, the top 8 teams in the world contested, but not all of the all-around gymnasts did all the events. So some of them still have reserved a little energy. But someone like Tomita, who is
heavy contributor,
and without Kashima, who is normally fulfills the role of at least 2 or 3 events for Japan, it put an extra load on Tomita, and boy, we are seeing it today.
Also shows how much importance these gymnasts put on the team competition.
Right.
Almost putting their individual goals and accolades aside for the better of the team.
Raj, you and I have been there. We've had some individual successes, but there is nothing like being a part of a great team, whether that's for the U.S. or for your Ohio State University or my University of Oklahoma. I have to admit, when you're out there with your guys, you give everything you have in a team effort, and there's nothing like it, is there?
There really isn't. It's an electrifying feeling to be out there as a squad, as one group of guys. You almost feel like a family, and then when you accomplish that lifelong goal of medaling at a World Championships or even winning an NCAA championship, it's just a very fulfilling feeling to share that among your teammates and brothers.
14.3 for Tomita, more than a point below his effort in the qualifying round. So
he's making it too easy for this guy here.
Yeah, don't give Yang Wei an easy route to the gold, because he'll take it.
And this is a pretty good routine for Yang Wei. It's a single pommel work into a 180 Russian. That's called a Magyar travel. And he's relatively square to the horse. Judges are looking at how square your shoulders are in relation to the horse. And that's going to be another good routine for Yang Wei. Bart, he's definitely checked into the office. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, and he's coming into rings, vaults, parallel bars, where he just is among the class of the field.
Right, it's where, if this were a car racing competition, he's coming up on.
He's going to lap the leaders.
Yeah.
By the way, we did not see the score yet for Jonathan Horton on the rings, but it was a 15.25, a 6.2 A panel start for him. Not a bad effort for Horton. Just slightly less than his qualifying effort. But a respectable pommel horse routine and a decent ring routine. Horton for the U.S. off to a good start. Solariu now for Romania.
Maltese push to planche. 1/10 in connection bonus. A little high on that inverted cross. Judges are looking for a margin of about 15 degrees to incur no deduction. 15 degrees meaning shoulders in relation to the rings. You want to see how flat you are in those positions.
Solariu was a member of the bronze medal winning team for Romania in Athens. He's a tall gymnast. This is a tough event for a guy who's tall. Wow.
Does it relatively well.
Good technique. Romanians were 8th place at the Worlds. They are missing, of course, Marian Dragulescu, so their 8th place team finish, a big disappointment for them. Not at their best. The European Championships, he was 8th in the all-around. Yang Wei, 15.55. Slightly higher than his qualifying score, so Yang Wei looking fresh and ready to be coronated as a champion here. Liang Fu Liang.
And look at his swing. Definitely see the amplitude of his hips above the pommel horse. Something that catches the viewer's eye. These Chinese gymnasts, they really have mastered the swing on pommel horse.
And really, to a man, their elevation over the horse is remarkable. Do you think
Really
they train
is.
somehow differently? Uh-oh.
A little bit of separation there and a break in rhythm.
What do you think makes them so good here?
I think they start from a very young age, Bart. They start training the proper technique.
Yo! Now that's when your lack of endurance shows in the last few seconds of that routine.
That's just a matter of gas running on close to empty there. But he kept it going relatively smoothly, so...
A lot of difficulty in the routine.
Right.
Shouldn't be a major deduction. It's interesting because there is no connection bonus on the pommel horse now. The routines are just longer than they used to be. There's just no way you can get a good score unless you stay up there a long time. You see the score for Solariu on the rings. So many of the routines, like parallel bars, high bar, and pommel horse, are considerably longer than they were under the last code, just because you have to be up there a long time to rack up enough difficulty points.
Because there's no connection. Some of the other events, you can take out a skill here and there if you're connecting certain skills. That skill there is called a Yamawaki. He did one in the tuck position, one in the pike position. It's more popular this time around in this code of points.
Koshi, European Championships this year, 5th in the all-around, 3rd on the pommel horse, where he is very, very clean.
Seeing more front dismounts off of rings this time around, which is nice. A little bit of variety in the sport.
We pick apart the current code of points, but one thing that I see is an advantage is that we are seeing a bigger variety of skills because you have to look for ways of getting start value, right? So
that is an upside to this code of points, is some of the skills that disappeared into the shadows are actually making their way back onto the world stage again.
The problem when they redo the code of points, it's as if all the gymnasts select similar routines or almost identical routines because they're looking for the least risky way to get the highest possible score. I can't blame them. That's kind of how you do it.
That's right. And actually what happens is whenever the new rules come out at the beginning of the 4 years, gymnasts are actually learning from other gymnasts what's going on. Hey, this guy from China is doing this. And a lot of the things just transpire over the countries. And that's why when you collectively come here in the same arena, all these guys are training in different parts of the world, but you see relatively the same routines.
Liang Fu Liang having a very good start for China as we look at Maxim Deviatovsky, 23-year-old from Leninsk, Kuznetsky, reigning European all-around champion.
Call that the flop sequence there, a lot of single pommel work.
This type of sequence, for instance, is almost compulsory. A Wu to a Fedorchenko. Right. Almost everybody does it, don't they?
And the main reason is coming out of that Wu skill and going into a 1080, it flows really well. Not too much change in body position or type of swing.
Not bad.
That's a good set. He's going to be happy with that.
Deviatovsky, his father, a gymnastics coach. He's a member of their Olympic team, which placed 6th. 2004, Koshi, a 14.55 for a gentleman who his body type is more suited for pommel horse and parallel bars. He's happy with a 14.55 on rings. For some of you frustrated that we're not seeing performances on the other two apparatus, the host broadcaster, German television, focusing on the top 2 groups of all-arounders who will likely be the medalists by the end of the day, but we'll be picking up some performances in highlight on videotape of some of the other apparatus going on. Ryazanov, the 19-year-old from Vladimir.
So far, a nice strength sequence to begin the routine. Generally, viewer will see the swing elements on rings come later in the routine, just because a lot of these gymnasts want to knock out their strength early on. Oh, these guys are nailing these pike double fronts, and that's a blind landing, Bart. You really have to rely on your air sense. And these guys are rocking out sets, and they just don't have any energy to celebrate.
That pike double front, a D move at this level of competition to fulfill all the requirements. You need to do a dismount rated at the D level difficulty. And the double layout, which everybody did for 8 years, was a D, now is a C. So it's really forced the gymnast to come up with something else, doesn't it?
It actually has, and that's why a lot of these gymnasts are going this route. A lot of gymnasts actually struggled with that requirement on rings, as D-level dismounts are not always easy on every single event. Some events much easier to fulfill that requirement than others.
In rings, everybody did the old standby double layout and was looking for a stuck landing, but now the judges are requiring them to do something slightly more challenging, and in that way it's advanced the sport. Deviatovsky, a 14.925, about 0.2 of a point lower than his qualifying effort.
Nonetheless, it's a good score on pommel horse.
Good score, especially what we're seeing today, considering that the level of performance is a notch down from what we saw in the qualifying rounds. More gymnastics coming up from Stuttgart. Don't go away. Bart Connor and Raj Bobs are back in the World Gymnastics Championships men's all-around final. Do a quick recap on some of the performances that we did not see in rotation 2. Yang Tae-young on the parallel bars, the 27-year-old from Seoul, qualified 20th into this all-around final.
Nice peach half into a peach there. Pike bell.
Gymnastics fans might remember that the parallel bars and his start value score in 2004 was the scene of the crime in Athens, and this was the old... Oh, no, there's a mistake.
Supposed to do that skill there, a front 1 1/4. It was going to be connected right out of that Healy. He took an extra swing, which will cost him marks on the B panel deduction.
He was the leader after the first rotation because of his strong vault performance, not unexpected. But that was not what he had intended to do. 15.525 for Yang Tae-young.
That will hurt a little bit, and you can see in the score not as much because there's no connection on P-bars.
Right, so there's no loss of points for that, just the error.
Just the error, just the extra swing.
Normally scores 16 points or so on parallel bars.
And that's a 16.2 vault start value.
Anton Fokin of Uzbekistan, 15.75. Very clean.
Very clean. Conservative vault.
Dmitry Savitsky, Belarus, on the parallel bars. This is all on tape from the... Oh, isn't that
pretty
sweet? Oh, I
wow.
love his technique.
That first skill there was a front uprise Diamidov. Rare. But when done well, like he did, it's just very pleasing to the eye. Difficult at that as well.
Belarus very pleased that at these championships they placed 12th in the team competition, which means they will be a full team at the Olympics next year in Beijing. Only the top 12 teams in the world. 15.65 for Savitsky.
Little recap here. That element is called a tuck bell. Essentially a giant release the bars and do a double backflip, regrasping your upper arms.
Claudio Capelli from Switzerland on the vault.
Handspring double front and very controlled on that landing. That vault will start from a 16.6. Some gymnasts will notice that their knees are together in the air. He had a little bit of separation in that tuck double, but didn't hurt him too bad. 16.125 is a good score.
David Kikuchi of Canada on the parallel bars.
Peach half.
Kikuchi qualified into the all-around final in 22nd position.
The more popular skills on P-bars, again, this quadrennium, are the peach type skills and the giant double backs. Simply because they give the gymnast the most difficulty.
15.1 the score for Kikuchi there, the 27-year-old from Halifax. And the score for Deviatowski, we saw this routine on the rings. That graphic is in error, but the score for him, we will bring you up to speed on that when we get it. Nice crowd on hand, just about 6,000 people. David Durrani to vault now. David Durrani, the fortunate performer here, the reserve, but got into the all-around final because the Bulgarian Jordan Yovchev elected to not compete.
This will be a good competition for him, the reigning U.S. national champion. I'm sure he was really looking forward to competing in this competition.
After yesterday having a fall on the pommel horse and the high bar, a chance of redemption of sorts for Durrani, who is the leader of this strong American contingent here. So, after 2 of 6 rotations, Yang Tae-young, the Olympic bronze medalist, right now in the lead. Savitsky in second, and you see the rest of the field. But remember, it's all academic until everybody's vaulted.
That's right.
Yang Wei currently in 3rd place from China on 2 of his weaker events, only in 3rd. Expect him to extend his lead as he moves to the rings next. back live from Stuttgart, the World Gymnastics Championships. I'm Bart Connor along with Raj Bavzar, ready now for rotation 3 of 6. Anton Fokine, we saw him vault in the previous segment. Now that group moves on to the parallel bars as all the athletes rotate around the floor here in what's called Olympic order.
Nice peach half.
Boy, his technique and then underbar work is nice.
Same technique as the Japanese, who are masters of the peaches.
The finalist at last year's World Championships on the parallel bars, took 8th place. We'll see him again on the parallel bars in the event finals here in Stuttgart.
So far, this routine has a nice flow and look to it.
The judges look for skills above the bars, below the bars, and then from an upper arm support. They have to be masters of all those types of swings.
That's right, all the different categories of skills. The gymnast must fulfill all 5 category requirements.
This one fulfills an underbar requirement.
And for every one they fulfill, Bart, the gymnast is awarded 5/10 towards their score. So if you hit all 5 and do them well, then you're given 2.5 towards your final score.
I like that aspect of gymnastics. There's no longer any compulsories, so it really forces the gymnasts, if they're going to be a great gymnast, they have to be balanced in all the areas of that apparatus, not necessarily milking only their best. Nice vault for Jonathan Horton.
That's a good vault, considering he's been struggling with the landing of that, even in the past few U.S. competitions. A little bit inconsistent, but definitely got it back here.
Put a hand down in the qualifying round here as well. He can do lots of vaults, but this one he chooses to do because it's a 6.6 degree of difficulty and a 16.075, a very good score.
A shade lower than some of the other gymnasts you've seen do that vault, mainly because you look at the execution in the air, his knees are a little bit more apart than the other gymnasts.
Anton Fokine had a clean routine for Uzbekistan. He qualified 15th into the final in a 15.9.
That's a pretty good score.
Very good score on parallel bars.
It's a great score. Well deserved, though. That was a nice routine.
Mizutori now, getting set as the so-called leader group moves to the still rings.
He has a twin brother in Japan as well. I had an opportunity to train with the entire Japanese team this past January. We've got an incredible state-of-the-art facility out there.
The U.S. team has had a lot of cooperation with many other international programs. There have been training camps and cooperative programs with China and Japan and other countries.
And that's one thing I really like.
For nearly 20 years, the Japanese men reigned in the sport of gymnastics up until 1976, and then for a long time the team of the Soviet Union dominated, and so it was quite a thrill to see Japan back on top of the Olympic podium in 2004 from that spectacular finish in Athens. This is not the best event for Mizutori.
No, he's kind of just grinding it out.
Oh, I like that combination.
Don't see that too often.
Scored a 14.975 in the qualifying round, and I think he's happy with that performance, but it's clear that he's lacking some of the strength combinations to get a big score that you might see from someone like Yang Hui.
So he has to rely on these swing elements here, the Yamawakis, and near the end of his set he does a skill called a Gozogi, which is essentially those forward flipping skills but done backwards.
Rizvan Solariu Set to vault for Romania. We've seen several occasions at these World Championships where gymnasts have been forced to stand and wait before they go. They're waiting on the score from the previous performer.
And that can be a very nerve-wracking time for some gymnasts. You're no longer operating off your own clock. You're waiting for the judges to be ready.
Nice.
Very nice. Looked like he was trotting into that and exploded off the vault table. The result was a nice Kazumatsu full. That vault will start from a 16.6. One small step. That's only a 1/10 step on that deduction. And the gymnasts that can minimize their landing deductions in this competition will really find themselves ahead when the dust settles. Landing deductions can really rack up over 6 events. Got a 1/10 deduction for a small step like that, and a larger step is 3/10. After that, it's 5/10, and if you fall down, it's 8.
I'm not sure I like that system now. 16.175 for Solario. That's a great score. When I competed, the judges could take a 1/10 of a point or a 2/10 of a point deduction, 3/10 of a point. Here, the deduction categories are 1, 3, 5, and 8. So it's tough for a judge. How big was the step? Was it a 1/10 of a point step, or do I have to hit him 3/10 of a point? How do they make that choice?
And, you know, there's really no clear definition, but generally within the community, what we go by is judges are looking for a step no larger than the width of their shoulders. Like that there would be a 3/10.
Right. On what was a really awesome vault. I guess the idea when they changed the rules was to reward high difficulty skills, but also be very stringent on execution deductions, and that's the logic behind it.
That was pretty.
That was sweet. That's a Kaz double full, and in total, it's 3 twists in the air. It's big.
That's right, and that vault will start from a 17.0, one of the highest starts you'll see in this competition.
This is the vault that brought down American Justin Spring at the recent Visa Championships. He landed still twisting, blew out his ACL on his knee, and
that's unfortunate because he was a strong candidate for this team.
Well, and hopefully he'll have a chance of rebounding and having a shot at the 2008 Olympic team. Another one of the talented Americans not here. 16.475. There's the advantage of having a 7-0 start value.
That's right.
He can afford to take a 3/10 of a point step and still beat most of the field because of the difficulty rating. That is incredible.
Most of the field, not just on vault, but overall, because this is a higher scoring event.
This is the type of thing where you could pick up 2 points in the all-around over a guy who hit a very good pommel horse routine, for example.
Absolutely correct.
Okay, now here's a perfect example of what we're talking about. That was a very good-looking double twisting Yurchenko.
Right.
Worth 6.2. So 0.8 of a point less.
Less than the Kaz double full, which we just saw. So he's already starting with a 0.8 deficit on the previous gymnast. And generally, what happens, because gymnastics is a subjective sport, the judges will be a little bit more lenient with the harder vaults. On these more conservative vaults, they're expecting perfection almost.
Very interesting. The logic behind the new scoring system was to really reward the guy who can successfully do the high-level skills. And I understand that logic. 14.35 for Mizutori. Perfect example of a decent routine on the rings, which gave up 2 points to the impressive vault.
That's right.
Oh boy, we got a
Yeah, here we go. Let's
hold
see
our
if we
breath
can,
for Tomita. We already noted that he's gassed. We saw it on the floor and horse. Rings will be tough today for a guy who's already worn out.
Doesn't look like it's too tough right now. These strength elements are looking very crisp. This is one of his better routines.
Usually, though, the lack of strength shows up later in this routine when
right.
you're having to cope with that.
It's funny how gymnastics works. Sometimes you can be extremely tired, but your muscles will still function. You'll still be able to hold these strength elements. Where you'll find where you suffer is actually the endurance in the routine. Just find yourself more gassed, out of gas towards the end.
Hey, nice job.
What a recovery, huh?
What a recovery on an event where normally your fatigue will show. You can see it in his face, but this time his arms did not give out.
Nope.
Wow.
Been a ring finalist in many competitions.
The score for Ryazanov, a 15-9. Pretty high score.
That's a little bit generous.
Too high.
Part, yeah.
It was a little low. He piped down from a 16-2 maximum, only 3/10 of a point off.
Total. Versus a guy that does a 17.0 vault.
Too high.
Right. I think a little bit too high.
Don't like that score at all. Philly Boy now. Oh!
Same vault, just way under-rotated. And that can happen if you don't get the proper block off the vaulting table.
Once again, the body style of a great vaulter typically is somebody who's a little shorter.
Right.
A little stockier, perhaps. The long, lanky guys don't do as well typically on the vault.
More body to get around.
Right, long levers.
Right.
And boy, that's going to be a major deduction.
So you see there's no mercy points in gymnastics here. He landed on the line, then stepped out, and also fell. And each one of those things will incur a deduction. So
it's just too hard, man.
You know, so you do you got the 8/10 fall, then 3/10 for the step, and
on top of that, you sting your ankles so bad, you get some pain with it as well. So it's not just the painful score, it's the physical pain of, ouch, that hurt.
And that's not the way he wanted that to go, especially with a conservative vault like that. I'm sure he was going for the stick a little bit too hard. Sometimes we do that in gymnastics. We rely on the adrenaline. We know the adrenaline's going to carry us through the skill, and maybe sometimes feel like the skill's going better than it actually is.
That's a good point. And knowing that you're down in terms of difficulty value, the only thing you can do is compensate by having the best execution score possible. So you go for a stuck landing, and that's what you get. 16.05.
That's a great score.
Tomita coming back. Boy, it's a relief to see that. After two subpar performances on the floor and horse, just about 1/10 of a point less than his qualifying score, but a good job for Tomita. That'll work his way back up into the standing.
That would be nice to see. And we're in for a treat here. This is one of Yang Wei's best events. He has one of the highest starts in the competition, and I'll explain why. That element there was a Maltese push to invert. He's going to gain 2/10 in bonus for connecting. Those are strength skills that are traveling upwards, or anti-gravity as I like to call it. Again, that's a Maltese push to planche. Pike Yamawaki. That's called a laid-out Gazogi. Does it in a little bit different style than some other gymnasts.
Looks like you have to have ball bearings for shoulder joints to do it that way. Oh, come on.
There, look at that. Stuck it. That's called a layout double-double. I'm pretty familiar with that dismount.
Yeah, I know you do that big dismount. That's well, he is just so prepared. The look on his face and the look of those routines, you just sense that he is completely prepared for the challenge of today, being a little bit tired. He is fit, isn't he?
He's very fit. I'm sure very deep inside him is a motivation for that Olympic gold, and always been a contender for the all-around gold in several world championships and in the past Olympic games, but just couldn't put it together. There's always some little error that held him out of it, and I don't think he wants to leave any stone unturned.
3 times in the history of men's gymnastics have one athlete won the all-around title twice in world championships. Yuri Korolev did it in 1981 and 85. Dmitry Bilozerchev did it in 1983 and 87. And Ivan Ivankov of Belarus did it in 94 and 97. But no man has won back-to-back all-around titles at the world championships. And Yang Wei looking like that is a distinct possibility today.
Chance to make history.
Rafael Martinez to the vault.
Oh. Notice how he landed completely out, both feet outside the line.
Major deduction for what was normally a good vault. 15.75.
So that vault started from a 16.6 and scores almost a point lower. The vault itself was relatively clean and good, but landing outside the line completely.
Yang Wei in charge here and going to another spectacular event, the vault for him. More gymnastics from the third rotation when we come back. Kim Dae-jung on the parallel bars now for Korea. I should note that the graphic, the name is listed differently on the graphic than we pronounce it. The Asian names, typically you lead off with your last name and then your first name, as in the case of Li Ning or Li Xiaopeng. So we are honoring the Asian culture by saying last name first, as they do. Kim Dae-jung, the silver medalist at the Olympics in 2004.
And this is a good routine so far, Bart. These Asian countries really, especially on P-bars, really cram a lot of difficulty into these routines. Stick landings definitely help the all-around score.
Kim Dae-jung will turn 23 later this month. Qualified 17th to this all-around final.
Look at that score. That's nice.
Wow.
16.050.
Scored a 16.025 in the qualifying round, so a little bit better today. Yang Wei, wow, 16.4.
That's probably going to be the highest score of the competition on this event.
He scored a 16.35 in the qualifying round.
And like you were saying about body types here, Bart, compared to his teammates, who is short, quick, strong, and light, gymnasts like these usually tend to excel on events like pommel horse, high bar, where a lean look is very appealing.
It's just a matter of physics. Long levers are more difficult.
That's right. A little high on those positions there.
The key in gymnastics is your strength to weight ratio. Right. So that's why the best all-around gymnasts tend to be small, light, lean, and quick, as you said. And a guy who is not particularly tall, like Lian Fu Liang, who's probably about 5'6".
Right.
He looks long and lanky out there compared to a Yang Wei, who's a couple inches shorter and a lot beefier.
He knows it kind of just a get-through event for him. He's got his better events coming up.
Surprisingly good on the vault, and of course the Chinese are the masters of the parallel bars. Those will be the next two events for this group of leaders. He's contributed a great deal to this team, not only in yesterday's team gold medal performance, but last year's gold medal performance as well. As an all-arounder in 2005, he was 7th place.
That element there is called the layout gazogi.
Ow.
I don't know if you noticed, but your shoulders really take a beating on that. I'm sure training that numerous times a week, shoulders are really crying inside. It's a D dismount, layout, full out. Judges are looking for a little bit of amplitude and your finishing position. They don't want to see you twisting right into the ground. They want to see the gymnast finish the dismount and have time to flare out of it.
Amplitude is a term in gymnastics which describes bigness, I guess,
right.
is the word.
Not just height, but just the wow factor as well.
Never heard that word used in any other industry except gymnastics. Amplitude sounds like volume. What is it? You know, how loud is it? Or, but
engineering measurement of some sort.
It is some sort of gymnastics term that is unique to our sport, but it is used to describe the bigness of a skill. And I know when I mention amplitude to a non-gymnastics person, they're like, "What? Does that mean it was loud?"
I know.
What does that mean? Every sport has its own particular language and nomenclature.
Right.
You ever been to a skateboarding or a snowboarding event when it's a McCheese to a
triple
stale fish?
Right. McTwist and triple cherry bounce.
Judges once again challenged to come up with start values, and Jim Hartung, my Olympic teammate there on that judging panel. I don't envy these guys. There's a lot of calculation that needs to go into this.
There is.
And particularly if a strength move isn't quite in the correct position, not only do you not get full credit for the strength move, but then you would lose the possibility of getting a connection bonus if you had connected it to another skill.
Right, like suppose a Maltese is too high, like 30 degrees above the rings.
Right.
Shoulders are way up there, and the gymnast then attempts to push to an invert. Actually, what would happen is if the skill is unrecognizable, you would not get the connection bonus going into the invert, but you would get the invert itself.
So there are two judges on the A panel whose mandate is to calculate that concrete number of the start value, and then other judges, 6 other judges, determine the execution score for the routine and that combination and then results in the final score. So a long delay here as they calculate the score. But it's all important that they get a fair shot at the best score they can, because today gold, silver, and bronze will be handed out in the all-around finals. Don't go away. More gymnastics coming up. Welcome back to the World Gymnastics Championships. Jim Hartung, one of the A panel judges on the still rings, still working to calculate the appropriate score for Liang Fu Liang. All of the judges in the World Championship and Olympic competition selected from among the best judges of each country. One of the reasons the new scoring system was put in place was to hopefully reduce the nationalism and make the quantification of the scores more reliable. The whole point of the scoring system is to make sure that the best guy gets the best score, regardless of what number it is. But getting there sometimes is a little ugly.
It is. Still can be. There's really no way to eliminate all aspects of subjectivity in this sport.
One of the things that I've always felt was strange about the gymnastics scene is that when you go to a competition, you bring athletes, coaches, and judges.
Right.
And the athletes, coaches, and judges all feel part of the delegation.
Absolutely.
And so the judges feel like their job is to make sure that they support their athletes and coaches the best they can, and all they can do is give them the best possible score in that scenario. Well, generally it works out. And I have to admit, in 35 years of gymnastics, in most cases the right people win.
Right.
But getting there sometimes is not necessarily a pretty sight. Your feeling about that?
Well, you know, it's interesting to note that these judges, there's really only so much that one of those panels can do. The A panel is responsible for calculating all the difficulty, and the B panel is just responsible for the deductions. So working cohesively, they want to make sure that they've got the proper score. Number one, the A panel, most important, that they got all the skills right in the routine. If there's any deviation from that, that can cause some turbulence. And generally, when we see judging delays, that's usually what's going on. So whether or not a certain skill is going to get credit.
Now, you are able to contest a score.
Right.
But the FIG changed the rules recently and said, okay, if you want to protest your score, you got to throw out some money. $300 US to ask the judges to look that over again. And if you lose and you protest again, and it's $500 the next time. And
I'm kind of wondering where that money goes.
I don't know. Maybe to the post-event party for the judges. I'm not really sure. Towards a bar bill at some hotel, likely. But the only score that you can contest is the A jury score. You can't contest the deductions from the B jury or the execution, but you can say, I think you might have gotten my start value wrong, and that's when you can propose to protest the score, or they don't use the word protest, they call it inquire. Which I think is politically correct. But for the coach, it's definitely a protest.
Little hesitation, little bobbles in this routine. The rhythm of the routine, it doesn't flow quite as nicely as some of the other routines. It does have good execution, however.
Claudia Capelli of Switzerland, 14.925. Not a bad effort there.
Not bad at all. Might have had too many hold elements.
15.525 for Deviatowski.
Germany's favorite.
All eyes on Fabian Hambuchen. That's a weak start to this routine.
That is. It's just a very basic strength position.
In a straddle position, and anytime you straddle a move like that, flange.
And he probably will not receive credit for that shoot to invert. That was a back-up rise invert. And got to the position and quickly fell out of it.
This may be one of those routines that's going to take a while to calculate, because the judge is now forced to review the A panel value of this routine because of that missed skill and the missed combination.
That's right. And some judges might be inclined to give it to him, and some may not. And that's where sometimes you get a lot of the deliberation between the judges. So we'll see what happens here.
I have to say, it's just becoming more and more apparent that it's unfortunate that the meet schedule has forced these athletes to compete within less than a 24-hour period of time after the team finals, because the fact that the best guys are fatigued is really taking away from the quality of this all-around competition.
It absolutely is, because we're not seeing the best gymnastics possible from these guys. Rather, what we're seeing is everyone kind of just grinding it out and seeing who ends up on top, outside of Yang Wei, of course. But no, you're right. I definitely would have liked to see a little bit more structure in organizing this event. 2007 being an important year, the year before the Olympics. Also want to take into account the gymnast safety. We push too hard for too long. As much as your mind and heart wants it, there might be that one little nagging injury that gives way and could possibly lose your Olympic dream.
14.35 for Hambuchen. Not that bad of a score considering that missed strength move in combination. He had a 14.7 in the qualifying round. So
it looks like what the judges did there is they gave him credit for that skill, but took a large deduction on it. Had he not received credit, I don't think that score would have been as high as it was.
Yang Wei in the lead and coming into two of his best events. Anton Fokin of Uzbekistan in second. Yang Tae-young of Korea in third. Jonathan Horton from the United States in 13th. And David Durrani from the U.S. having a very good competition in 6th place. And Durrani was a last-minute replacement. So we'll follow his progress when we come back. Men's all-around competition here at the World Gymnastics Championship continue. Hiroyuki Tomita 2 years ago won the World All-Around Championship and then placed second last year, having an unlucky day today. All right. Now, he didn't go for the most challenging vault. I think he has sort of decided he's just going to try to get through today. After a weak floor and pommel horse performance, he came back well on rings, but he just doesn't have that look of intensity in his face that he's going to have a shot at challenging for a medal. So this vault was not as complex as normal and a little low and no intensity on the landing. You can just see that look of resolve in his eyes.
Just looks tired, Bart.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. He's a phenomenal gymnast. It would have been nice to see him at his full potential.
Rafael Martinez now on the parallel bars. Always a contender, top 10 contender in all-around competitions.
This routine has a nice look to it so far. It flows well, traveling from one end of the bars to the other. Arms bent there on that peach element. You can distinguish one peach from another depending on how bent the arms are in the finishing position, and that's a deduction that the judges will take. Overall, a good set. Outside of that minor peach deduction, he should be happy with that.
He's hanging in there. It's a good thing. You know, today, you never know what's going to happen, although it looks like Yang Wei is solidly in charge. The silver and bronze medals are certainly up for grabs because Tomita is not at his best, although a 15.7 will be sufficient on vault, just about 0.2 of a point lower than his qualifying score. Yang Wei now.
And this is a big vault.
This is big.
You know, he has 3 events in succession where he just can really run away with this meet. And look at that. Not as good as a team finals competition, but nonetheless, it's a 17.0 vault. A large step there on the landing.
Remember, folks, no man has won back-to-back world all-around titles in the history of men's gymnastics. Here is a chance for Yang Wei to make history today, and he is in charge. Winner of 11 world and Olympic medals in his terrific career at just 27 years of age. He is firmly establishing himself as the man as they head to the Olympics next year as well.
Bart, 15 or 20 years ago, would you guys ever imagine that this is where vault was headed?
Oh, a guy would do this once and then he'd go right to the hospital. Nowadays, they actually competed successfully.
Still blows my mind.
So without a trip in the ambulance, no, I wouldn't have imagined. A double twisting vault, still considered impressive, and yet a triple twisting vault, 16.425.
He's just running away with that. Two events back-to-back, scoring in the mid-16s is a statement of dominance, I would say.
In reality, and we discussed this at the top of the show, that there are really only a handful of guys in the world, maybe 7, who can compete at this level and this quality of balance. In fact, Liang Fuliang, for instance, is not your classic all-around gymnast. He might have a shot at a medal here today. There just aren't that many guys who can do it anymore when the sport is so much more a sport about specialists than it is about all-arounders. And I have to say, it's sad for me that the all-around, which is the decathlon of gymnastics, the most important individual award in our sport, is no longer that valuable anymore.
And you know what? I was raised under the same system. Always in me was to be an all-around gymnast, to compete on all 6 events, and that told me where I was in the sport. And now you have guys that even doing just one event and making it to the world stage and winning a world title. Well, you know, what does that mean? You're a vault champion or you're a ring champion, but then you have guys doing the all-around, and almost it's taking away from the guy that's winning vault, or the guy that's winning rings is as hailed as the all-around champion.
16.025 for Liang Fuliang. Yeah, it's a different era now. There's no question about it. And your place on the team, in particular, Raj, whether you make the Olympic team next year or not, really depends not only on the quality of your gymnastics, but on the places where the U.S. team needs you to fill a void. So if you happen to be great on the events where the U.S. team is already great, then thanks, but no thanks.
And that happens to several gymnasts. We have a lot of gymnasts out there. You know, the U.S. is deep on some of the events, like parallel bars and high bar, and if you happen to be one of the better gymnasts on that event, just like you said, it's, you know, we've already got that spot. So you're not just earning spots based on your own performance, you're earning spots based on whether or not the team can use you.
I think we should continue with the discussion, because Sho Nakamori took 3rd place in the all-around at the recent Visa Championships. So he's the 3rd best all-around gymnast in the United States. And he's the alternate here. Not selected to compete for the U.S. team because there are other specialists who are remarkably good gymnasts, like Sean Golden and, help me out here, who are really 4 event guys.
Sean Golden, have guys like Sasha. Sasha's more of an all-arounder.
Artemev, but even Jonathan Horton.
Guys that are going to be used 3 up, 3 count on 3 or 4 events.
Kevin Tan is another example of somebody who's and a guy like David Sender, formerly of Stanford, who is just an incredible gymnast. It's unlikely he'll be on the same team with a guy like Jonathan Horton, because those 2 guys are good in the same areas, and Horton's slightly better. So Sender on any other team in the world would be a member of their team, but because U.S. already has those spots filled, he stays home. That's just, I don't know, that's not right as far as I'm concerned.
And you know, it's something I don't exactly agree with, because we're working so hard at this one personal goal, and you believe it, and you know, after you perform, you can perform as well as you want, but yet the decision is still in somebody else's hands. It's no longer in your hands. The only thing you have control over is your own gymnastics, but you have no control over your fate, which is a little bit ludicrous in sport, I would say.
Yeah, it's true, because you can do the best you can, but in reality, whether you make the team or not has to do with what the other guys can or can't do, not what you can or can't do.
Right.
Okay, Fabian Hambuchen. Nice looking vault there. The 2.5 twister. It was beautiful. And after that disappointment on rings, he still has a shot here.
He does.
If he can stay in it.
He does. He's got his best event at the end of the competition, high bar.
I think he senses that. A lot of intensity in this vault.
I hope so. He definitely has a little bit of work to do, but in no way out of this whatsoever. Definitely in the running. When legs are pasted together, nice and tight in the air, the judges will see that, and very, very small shuffle of the feet on the landing. And the crowd knows it, and score of 16.3. That's a very good score. Well needed for him.
Excellent score for Fabian Hambuchen. Don't count him out today.
Two more. Let's see if we can muster it up.
Flavius Koji having a very good competition. Currently third in the all-around. Good effort on the parallel bars. Raj, you and I have been talking about the philosophy of this current situation in gymnastics. We would be interested to hear the comments from our viewers. So if you care to send us a note to WCSNfan@WCSN.com, and we will try our best to respond to you. Perhaps you have an opinion about the dying art of the all-around and the fate and the state of gymnastics in the globe, and we'd love to hear from you, and perhaps we can respond to you on air. Mizutori now. Oh, boy, that was looking good.
That was looking good.
And so far from the horse.
Right. A little bit, you'll notice here in the twisting position, he's a little bit more hollow piked than some of the other gymnasts, and that's what causes that under rotation and the jump backwards there. But he was able to save it and make the landing not look too bad.
Anytime they come in twisting on those knees, boy, it just, my palms get sweaty, hoping that they're safe on those landings. This is just insane.
And I don't
what you have to do now to get a good score and risk your body and your life.
And I don't think the average viewer knows how many injuries occur in this sport day in, day out of the gym. Really only tend to focus on the ones that are happen at this competition, and there's been so many already. Blows my mind.
And not just injuries to marginal gymnasts, but injuries to the best guys.
The best.
And that's what's concerned some of us, is that is the sport and are the demands of the new rules just too much for the human body? Well, that discussion will go on and on, no question about it. I should tell you one thing, if you speak to an orthopedic doctor, they think this is all dangerous to the body. So
I've been told so many times from an orthopedist, you're doing what the human body isn't meant to do.
So if you complain about joint pain in your elbows and shoulders,
he kind of looks at you and says, well, obviously.
You're a gymnast, aren't you? All right, Philippe Boy getting back on track after a couple less than great performances.
The score goal for Mitsutori Hisashi from Japan, 15.875.
Here's the vault again by Mizutori.
15.875. Still a very good score for a vault that's scored from a 16.6 maximum, theoretically. Good crowd on hand here. Nearly 6,000 people in the Hans-Martin Schleierhalle in Stuttgart, the venue that has been the host to many major international gymnastics competitions over the years, including the 1989 World Championships in Stuttgart, which was still lauded as one of the greatest world championships ever.
And it's really great to see a crowd such as this, you know, as a competitor at a stage like this. You know, you're focusing on the competition and your routines and what you have to do, but when the crowd really gets into your gymnastics, it's like no other feeling.
Gymnastics blends in with the culture of the German lifestyle. Many German families belong to Turnverein organizations, which are basically family exercise centers, and gymnastics is the base of all of those exercise programs in recreation as well as in the school systems. Yang Tae-young on the floor, Korea.
Point out here on floor, haven't said this before, but out of every tumbling pass before the gymnast moves on to the next one, you'll see small little transition elements like this here. New rule change came out saying rather than watching the male gymnast just walk into the corner and perform their next tumbling pass, they wanted to see a little bit more of the artistic value of the floor exercise come out, and that's why you're seeing a little bit more of these leaps and steps.
Oh, 2 big steps and out of bounds. Big deduction there for Yang Tae-young. Yeah, that's the irony of it, is they're requesting more, let's say, transitional elements in the corners, but they don't give you any time to do it, because the only way to get points is by tumbling, and that's why they have to do 6 tumbling passes.
And there's so many indiscrepancies in the new rules that we can just list, but at some point we kind of just have to say, here they are, we got to deal with it.
I know every time the code of points changes, and typically they change every 4 years, although that's not the case in this quadrennium. The rules were designed to be in place for at least 8 years. They need to change the rules to keep up with the progress of the gymnasts and the development of the sport so that they can properly rank the first gymnast.
I mean, even talking with some of my teammates, Paul, Morgan, some of the other guys, this new scoring system almost changes the sport dramatically. In my mind, it's an altogether different sport. You have 6 different sports in my mind, each sport being a different apparatus. Floor is its own, could be its own individual competition if they really wanted it to be.
I think the best analogy is a little bit like track and field. Now you have sprinters, jumpers, throwers, distance runners, middle distance runners. These people train differently. They have different body types and different qualities.
And then you have the decathlon, which is like a culmination of all those things.
Which is the guy who's pretty much average in everything. Not exceptional anywhere.
Not exceptional, exactly.
And so
that's what's going to happen.
That's what's watered down the quality of the all-around.
Exactly.
Is that they're not really great anywhere. And basically pretty average everywhere. And so I think we're seeing the result of that today. This competition is nowhere near as exciting as the team competition was yesterday.
No, not.
And the team competition is a composition of individual stars. Not necessarily a group of mediocre all-arounders. We invite you who are listening to send us your comments, because we're, in lieu of the delays and the long scoring, we're opting to discuss the state of gymnastics. I hope that's not annoying for our viewers, but
I don't think so.
I think it's interesting for us.
I think it's a long overdue discussion at that.
All right, here comes the letters. Sandy Hamm. How about that?
Oh, wow.
Paul and Morgan Hamm's father send a note to us that he agrees with the demise of the old system, not to mention his personal attitudes towards some of the decision makers. That's our Sandy Hom. We love it.
I love that guy.
Nice combinations here on the high bar. Nice looking dismount. Anton Fokin from Uzbekistan having a very good day, sort of quietly going through his performances. One of the less heralded gymnasts here, but he's a very balanced all-arounder, no question about it.
Just reading over Sandy Hom's letter. Appreciate it, Sandy. And you make excellent points. I was actually surprised as well when the FIG decided to move to a 3-up, 3-count format.
Right.
You know, you don't get as good of a look at the entire team as a whole. Like you said, rather you're putting up all-stars here and there on each event versus you have an NBA team and here's your starting lineup. You know, here's the guys that we're going to put on the bench, or an NFL team, and those guys get the most action. Well, in gymnastics, completely different.
A lot of good comments here from Sandy Hom. We appreciate him sending in his note. He doesn't agree with the 3-up, 3-count system. I believe it was a move in the wrong direction, he says, and lots of other areas in the sport of gymnastics could use some restructuring. So, well, let's send Sandy Hom to one of these International Gymnastics Federation meetings and give him a position to voice his opinions. I think there's a lot of people out there that are concerned about the direction of the sport for the safety of the athletes.
Absolutely.
And because the risk and the popularity of gymnastics is substantial.
Really
we see gymnastics rarely on television anymore, and that's why we're so proud to be working with WCSN, because we cover all the major international events live and on demand here at WCSN. Thanks for tuning in, folks. More gymnastics all-around competition when we come back. All-around competition continues here in Stuttgart. Jonathan Horton from the United States in that rotation, a 15.45. Couple of little bobbles on a parallel bar routine, but all in all, Horton having a pretty good day. These are routines that we did not see in the live coverage, but are being played back on videotape for the benefit of our viewers. And we will update shortly the standings after 4 of 6 rotations in the men's all-around final.
This element here that's the tuck bell I mentioned earlier. Some gymnasts opt to wear pads on their arms. Jonathan chooses not to.
We saw this routine for Anton Fokin, pretty clean routine, and a 14.5, not a bad score on high bar. Fokin having a very good day right now, currently in 5th place in the all-around. Let's take a look at the standings. Yang Wei, as can be expected, he's going to run away with this thing. There's no question about it. Diviatovsky from Russia in 2nd. Flavius Koji, the young Romanian, in 3rd. And you see Jonathan Horton in 8th and David Durrani from the United States in 13th. So the U.S. guys having a solid competition. Hiroyuki Tomita, the 2005 world champion, not in contention today. Yang Wei, pardon me, from China, getting set for the parallel bars. He has a solid lead And he's coming into an event which he...
it's probably just going to get bigger here.
Going to get bigger.
Ranked first for event finals on this event. Nice front uprights double, just smooth catch out of it. Look at that pike bell towards the end of the bars, so close to the uprights. Some gymnasts fear having to travel towards the uprights and landing right above them on those skills, as there's no give to the bars.
Very stiff out there towards the end. Not to mention, if you come through the bottom crooked, there's a steel hole in your way. That can't feel good.
No. So far, so good. He's really looking in charge of his gymnastics here, and it's nice to see.
He's the reigning world champion on this event. Runner-up at the 2000 Olympics and the 2003 World Championships to American Paul Hamm, and then he fell on the high bar at the 2004 Olympics. Otherwise, he could have been a factor in that final medal podium standing at the Olympics in 2004. He won the Asian Games last year. It's just really hard to find too much of a weakness. And in the weak areas, perhaps a little bit on floor and maybe the high bar, he's balanced enough that he doesn't give ground to too many other competitors. And by weak, it's not that he's terribly weak, it's just that his scores are not as well as some of the other events. And he definitely has enough cushion on the other events to disperse some tenths here and there to make up for the losses. Flavius Koshi from Romania, currently in third place in the all-around, way in the lead. Maxim Deviatovsky from Russia in second. Koshi having a very good meet. Oh! A little close on that Ginger. I can't blame him. He probably realized, hey, I'm in third, man. I got to catch all these release moves. That's exactly what you're thinking at that point. You want to pull everything a little bit closer to the bar. Just a natural tendency for gymnasts to be a little bit cautious. Having a good day, and he'll finish up on the floor and then the pommel horse where he excels. Nice job. Take a look at Yang Wei again. Excuse me, I misspoke. He finishes up on the floor. He's already performed on the pommel horse. There's 2 rotations to go in this all-around competition. Liang Fu Liang now on the parallel bars. Tied for 6th in the all-around coming into this 5th of 6 rotations. And again, look at the lines here with these Chinese gymnasts on parallel bars especially. Just very crisp. So late in the routine, that giant double back, and that's a solid routine. Okay, he'll have high bar yet to go. Can he end up with a medal today? It is within his sight. There's no question about it. Hey, boy, our conversation has really invited a lot of people to send us some notes. We got a note here from Michael Mastroni. Says, by the way, great coverage on WCSN. Love what you guys are doing there. Thank you. He asks, do we think that the International Gymnastics Federation, as you see the score for Flavius Koji on high bar, do you think that they will make any adjustments before the 2008 Olympics? That's very unlikely. Very unlikely. It's too late in the game for that. Mainly just
routines are set, and there's just any sort of scoring changes that would come about now might be some sort of technical small rule change about some sort of skill, but any major change to the scoring system is not going to happen.
This system was designed to be in place for 8 years, and already after the system was the rules were introduced, there have been many modifications to them. So this system was never really fully tested out before it was put into play. I think that was perhaps a mistake. They should have stayed with the old scoring system or modified the old scoring system enough to retain the perfect 10 as the high score.
That's right.
And still managed to figure out a better way of evaluating these routines. I think that was possible without throwing out the perfect 10 ceiling.
Well, again, something that is not normally done, and halfway through the quadrennium, they made significant rule changes to the code, because the first 2 years, I remember several gymnasts and coaches kind of hands up in the air. What do we do with this new scoring system? Kind of lost as far as, because it takes a lot of strategy, a lot of planning. What can this gymnast do? And just the foundation wasn't set for this new scoring system. It was kind of just built and then thrown out there. So really, these gymnasts have only had 2 years to figure out this new system and perform these routines.
My contention is that in that meeting where they determine what the new system will be, there are not enough current coaches or current athletes sitting in on that session.
I agree.
They need people who are in the gym every day being a part of that decision, not coaches and administrators, former coaches, judges, and administrators who have been out of the gym and out of the sport for 20 years.
I agree.
The decision needs to be made by people who are in the gym every day, seeing what this code of points does to deteriorate the bodies of these athletes, what it does to the safety of the sport, and those people who are right on the ground floor of what's happening in gymnastics need to be involved in more of the key decisions. Oh my goodness. Oh. Wow, what happened there?
He was going for a giant pike bell, and it seemed to have happened as he kicked relatively early and didn't quite get into that pike position, and when he came out to kick out, actually below the bars.
Deviatovsky, who was in second in the all-around. Oh, he's not going to continue. Well, now that's hard to believe.
Wow.
It's unclear what is the state of his injury. It looks like it's a lower body injury, perhaps. That is amazing.
Just opted to...
Second in the all-around, doing well.
What does that say, Bart? I mean, is it give way to the importance of this competition at all?
Ryazanov, 14.475. He'll finish up on the floor, fourth in the all-around to this point. Sixth tied for sixth. Oh, I see. Perhaps when he landed, he jammed his foot.
Right.
Now, I would have expected that he could have gotten up and done something and perhaps done an easy dismount.
He absolutely
to at least get a score. That's surprising that he didn't at least try to maximize the situation and get more for that routine.
It makes me wonder what his commitment to this all-around competition really is.
So that's a good point. Philippe Boy of Germany.
Maybe he was thinking 2 events left, and that fall he feels like he might have just taken himself out of it. And
I don't know. The way this competition is unfolding, I'd like to stay in there as long as I can.
That's
Philippe Boy, he's doing the best he can.
I would have finished that routine.
You're not kidding. And even if he has an ankle injury or a foot injury, he should have done an easy dismount.
That's right.
But he will have a devastating score and will surely fall out of contention. I don't understand that at all, but your point is well taken, that perhaps he says, hey, wait a minute, I'm tired. This doesn't matter anymore.
Right, exactly.
And I'm not going to go on and continue to risk hurting myself. Let's see what happens here. Deviatowski, 3.725.
Für Deutschland, Fabian Hambüchen.
Oh, my goodness.
Just didn't quite get in enough, and like I said, when he came to open up, shoulders were almost below the bars.
This is really disappointing. It's like the medalists are going to be Yang Wei and any other two guys that are left standing.
Anybody who hits 6 for 6.
Or not even.
Maybe not
anybody
even,
who just doesn't go to the hospital. Fabian Hambüchen now. Don't count him out. He is not having the best day, but that seems to be the case for a lot of people here.
A lot of people. Be nice to see him climb his way back up there in front of his hometown crowd. So far, so good. Those are Healy elements. Not worth too much in difficulty. A lot of gymnasts will fill their routines with C-level skills, which earn you 3/10 in bonus, and finally some emotion out of.
He's finally waking up.
Yeah.
Way to go, Fabian.
Maybe now he knows it. That's right.
That's right. I got high bar coming up next. That's one of my best events. Don't count me out. He sure has the support of nearly 6,000 people in the Hans-Martin Schleyer Hall. There's no question about it. His teammate, Philippe Boy, 14.55 for that high bar effort. Currently in 12th in the all-around.
Please do not use flashlights. Thank you.
Die Wertung von Philipp Boy, 14,550. Nächster Turner am Boden, Anton Fokin.
Currently in 5th in the all-around coming into this rotation, Anton Fokin of Uzbekistan. An Arabian pike double front, not the best technique, but he did manage to land it. Surprised that he landed it, in fact. I think he's as surprised as we are. A little short on that tumbling combination. He's doing the right thing, though. He is very quietly going along, hitting routines, while several of the favorites are struggling. So don't count him out of the medals yet.
That might
and wouldn't
pay
a
off
medal
in the
for Uzbekistan in the all-around be fantastic? Normally not considered prime candidates for men's all-around medals.
It's nice to see in our sport, too, that medals can go out to some of the other countries. Brings a little bit of variety to the sport.
You see in the background, Jonathan Horton from the United States on the high bar live. The crowd responding to his exciting release moves as Fokin wraps up his floor routine here. 2.5 twister. Hambüchen says, let's get this thing done. Hambüchen will be also in the vault and high bar final, so we'll see more of him. Not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow in the day 2 of event finals. Later today on WCSN, we have the women's all-around final. And then tomorrow, day 1 of event finals, and the day after, day 2 of event finals. Mizutori of Japan set to go on the parallel bars. Very nice underbar work. I have such admiration for these gymnasts who can do those straight arm peach basket type skills. It is just unbelievable the amount of technique, strength, and timing that it takes to do that skill consistently with locked out arms.
Oh. Uh-oh. Wow. Pulls it. I think these guys are finally waking up a little bit. Seeing some emotion out of them. It's great. That's a nice skill there.
Boy, we have gotten a lot of responses from you out there. Sharina Jones sent us a note. I think she has a very interesting point about specialization. That it's sort of a natural progression in gymnastics. Many people in my era focused on the all-around, and through your era as well, Raj. But in other sports, you know, pitchers only pitch.
Right.
You know, punters only punt. So she has a good point. One of the things that is positive about specialization, it has allowed lots of gymnasts, like a guy like Jordan Yovchev from Bulgaria, as you see, score 14.825. Guys like Jordan Yovchev from Bulgaria, he's 34 years old and he's still here. He's a mediocre all-around performer, but he still has a chance to win a medal as an individual on the rings, and we'll see that tomorrow in the apparatus finals. So a lot of gymnasts are extending their careers for several years longer as a result of the fact that they are able to specialize.
Right.
And they don't have to continue to beat their bodies up trying to be a mediocre all-arounder. They can just say, hey, you know what? I'm not good at one event, so I'm not doing it anymore, and I can last a lot longer in the sport.
Right.
There is an advantage to that. There's no question about it.
Absolutely. You know, from this perspective, it is nice to have these specialized gymnasts. Main reason because we're actually seeing how far the sport can be explored. These specialists are taking some of these events to the next level and actually leading the way in terms of where the sport's headed. I do, however, feel strongly about, and I'm sure a lot of other gymnasts can attest to the fact that the all-around competition still is the most grueling. I believe that the all-around champion is garnered the best gymnast in the world versus a specialist who, suppose rings just win rings or wins vault, just won that specific event. And I guarantee you when they were training gymnastics at a very young age that they were training all the events. And somewhere along the lines they realized what they were good at, and it's nice to have that opportunity here in gymnastics. But the all-around competition, I believe, the all-around title is much more difficult to win than an individual apparatus title.
And like the decathlete, you consider the decathlete the world's greatest athlete.
Right.
And we, as gymnastics enthusiasts, consider the world all-around champion as the master of the sport.
Exactly.
No question about it. All right. More exciting gymnastics coming up. Don't go away, folks. Back at the World Gymnastics Championships, men's all-around final. Hiroyuki Tomita to the parallel bars now.
Kind of having a rough day, huh,
He is, but he's not completely out of it.
No,
I have to tell you that
pulling himself back into this. And this is definitely one of the events where he can shine. See their beautiful execution.
P-bars and high bar, two of his best events, and those are the two events he will finish up today on. So don't count him completely out.
That'd be nice to see a little bit of that never give up attitude.
Scored 16.0 qualifying. Any score on P-bars of 16 is big time. All right.
Should score well, actually. It's a well-executed routine. Packed with difficulty.
As if he's saying, hey, folks, I'm not out of it completely. I'm in there. Yang Wei solidly in front.
I was talking about the beating your arms take.
So those massive biceps are not enough to protect you?
Not enough.
This one power horse for Yang Tae-Yang, 14.925.
Und schließlich Rafael Martinez aus Spanien am Reck 14.
Yang Tae-Yung,
And this one horizontal
14.925 on the pommel horse. His final event will come up on the rings. We're recapping a couple of scores and routines that we did not see in rotation 5. So Kim Dae-Jung quietly having a respectable competition.
Nice tuck double mount. That skill is called a layout Thomas.
He was, of course, perhaps the most overshadowed gymnast at the Olympics in 2004. Earned the silver medal, but nobody remembers that. All they remember is the story of Paul Ham and Kim Dae-Jung's teammate, Yang Tae-Jung. But today, just like that, he's quietly a contender.
He's certainly turned some heads in the gymnastics community. Earned his way up to those spots.
Qualified 17th into this all-around final. This is his favorite event, the floor. And the Korean men have never won a world all-around medal.
Wow. And this routine is nice. It has a very artistic look to it. It's good to see from Korea.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
They were only 11th place as a team last year's World Championships, 5th place here. You never know what you're going to get with the Korean team. They look so impressive in practice, and then you never know who's going to show up. But Kim Dae-Jung solidly pushing through. 15.9 the score for Tomita on parallel bars. A great score.
That's a great score. Would have liked to have seen it maybe just a tad higher, but 15.9, close enough to 16. One more event, and he actually may be able to pull off a medal.
It would be remarkable considering the start he had today, but Kim Dae-Jung is working his way up in there, and Liang Fu Liang from China. So here are the standings. Yang Wei solidly in the lead by 3.5 points. Kim Dae-Jung second. Liang Fu Liang in third. Mizutori, Tomita, Hambuchen, Yang Tae-Jung, and Anton Fokine. For the Americans, Jonathan Horton in 10th and David Durrani in 17th place. So we will have one event to go when we come back to the World Gymnastics Championships. Yang Wei in control. If he wins today, will be the first all-around gymnast to win back-to-back World Championship all-around titles in the history of men's gymnastics. Back for the 6th and final rotation. The World Gymnastics Championships. I'm Bart Connor along with Raj Bhavsar. Proud to be bringing you this live coverage only on WCSN, home of world champions. 18 hours of coverage of these World Championships. And Liang Fu Liang in third place after 5 events, now set to do the high bar. For a day that is started off rather unimpressively, we are seeing a little drama here as we get down to the final event to determine the champions. Yang Wei solidly in the lead, Kim Dae-Jung in second, Liang Fu Liang in third.
Important to note here, Bart, that he did not do so well in the prelim competition on this event. scoring a 13.575.
'23-year-old from Guangdong. Very solid in his 4th World Championship appearance. Okay.
That will score better than the qualification.
Yeah, absolutely. Good execution. This competition, which is coming down to the survival of the fittest.
That's right.
More than the coronation of the best outside of Yang Wei, who should have this in the bag. Liang Fuliang competed very smartly today. Nothing particularly dazzling, but consistent, clean execution, which was the way to successfully get through this competition. We'll see where he ends up in the results. He's the first guy to go in rotation 6 on the high bar.
Consistency is the name of the game at this point. Gymnast that can hit the most routines. Usually it's the gymnast that hits all 6, like Yang Wei, that ends up on top.
Calling this Darwin Gymnastics. Survival of the fittest.
Natural selection.
Natural selection. That's what the new code of points should be called. If you're still alive, then you get to advance. 14.325 for Liang Fuliang. Significantly better than his qualifying score, so he is in the mix. And so is this guy, Fabian Hambuchen.
And this is an exciting event for him.
I'm looking forward to this. Yes. Finally, I'm getting energized again, aren't you?
Some excitement coming in here.
Here we go.
We'll see why he's so great on this event.
Nice.
That first element's called a Coleman. It's a full twisting Kovacs.
Aggressive today. 16.025 was his qualifying score. Oh, sweet.
That's nice. Finishing right in handstand.
That's first class right there.
Lay out to Kasha, connected right to a straddle. It's a DC combination, which will give him 1/10 connection bonus.
Nice. We're looking at a great score potentially for Fabian Hambuchen.
Oh, wow. He's got to be in there with that, huh, Bart?
They love him.
Crowd knows it. I don't know what he's worried about.
Nothing. He's not impressed, actually. Yang Wei says, I got the gold. You guys, you go have fun trying to get the silver and the bronze. A lot of variety of skills there. Good releases, good in-bar work, good pirouetting skills. Kim Dae-jung coming into this rotation, second in the all-around. 3.5 points behind Yang Wei of China. We mentioned the athletes were seeded based on their qualifying scores. Kim Dae-jung now on the pommel horse, typically the lowest scoring of the events.
And this is a difficult event to finish an all-around competition on. Just a little bit antsy. It's just natural to get a little bit anxious that the meet's going to be over soon. And as complex and intricate as pommel horse is, and working through it fine here. A little bit of skewing on those travels. Flies up on that dismount. Overall, a good set, and he's happy with it.
Scored a 13.975 in the qualifying. He had a very, very good competition today. But the standings might be slightly deceiving because he had to finish on pommel horse, typically the lowest scoring event. And the standings are all relative until everybody's done pommel horse, the lowest scoring event,
right,
and everybody's done vault, the highest scoring event. The numbers are deceiving until those numbers are out. 16:05 for Fabian Hambuchen. He is currently first in the all-around, but we are not done with the final rotation. Nice.
And like you were saying, Bart, I wish that wasn't the case with these events. I wish they were more evenly distributed. You know, to have an event, pommel horse, just harder than the vault in some cases.
I think that is another, to continue our discussion, a replication of the current rules, because when there was a ceiling of perfect 10, every score, every routine had essentially the same value to an all-around gymnast.
Right.
Now with an open-ended scoring system, so-called, although it's not completely open-ended, each event doesn't have the same relative value to an all-around score. That's one of the unfortunate things about this scoring system as it exists now. Nice.
Layout Kovacs. Caught a little close. Coleman. Japanese really emphasize their execution during their release moves. You see their knees never come apart upon catching. Relatively good routine from Mizutori.
Oh, you can't give up those landings.
Especially not in the last rotation. That deduction more than likely 4/10 because he took a small step and then a large step. So you take the 3/10 deduction and then a 1/10 deduction for the small step. Thought his skills could have finished a little bit more in a handstand. We'll see if that makes the difference in this routine or not. Elements like that, he finished near horizontal. Judges want to see you finish as close to the handstand as possible, maybe a 15-degree margin there.
There's certainly a lot of respect,
absolutely,
in this gym for the quality of the gymnastics we're seeing.
And that's what I love about this sport, is on the floor there's so much camaraderie and so much respect. We know how, all the gymnasts, no matter where you're from, we all know how difficult this is.
Kim Dae-jung 14.5, substantially higher than his qualifying score, currently second in the all-around. But some of the best yet to go. Mizutori 14.95, about a half a point lower than his qualifying score, and much of that, as you mentioned, in the landing.
In the landing of that dismount. A little bit of pike down as well.
You see there, folks, Tomita needs a 16.025 to go into the lead. Hard to believe after the start that he had that he has a legitimate chance at not only going into the lead, but into a medal position. Now, he scored only a 15.3 in the qualifying round. He's a good score on high bar. A score of 16 on high bar is pretty unlikely.
Pretty hard to do. The only person that has capability of doing that is Hambuchen of Germany. Nonetheless, this is a good routine for him. He's very, very clean. Just looks as if he has so much control on this.
Oh my goodness!
He rarely misses that. In fact, I have not seen him miss that in competition.
Well, he missed last year at the World Championships on the high bar. Yang Tae-jung looking on.
And that's just unfortunate. He was right there.
Oh! And he was 5th in the all-around. coming into this rotation, after a shaky start, he got it going again and looked to be a medal contender. Well, that is unlikely now.
Oh. I think he's just fighting through this competition now. He still has event finals coming up in a few days as well. That's a nice looking layout double-double dismount. He's a very technically precise gymnast. Much respect, though, buddy. This is not easy. There's that element there. It's called a Coleman.
What do you think happened?
Just, you know, he was going right here. And, well, that element, the Coleman, a lot is dependent on how you set up the giant beforehand, just to be so precise where you kick and release the bar. Probably kicked a little bit late on that and just inches off.
Tomita turns 27 in November. He'll go back home to Tokyo and get back to work. No question that this is a disappointment for him, the former world all-around champion, and he gave way to Yang Wei, who won the last year's world championship. He'll have to regroup and get focused for next year's Olympics. Still waiting for the score of Hiroyuki Tomita after that disappointment on the high bar. He doesn't show a lot of emotion even when he's winning. He's a pretty cool character. But there is a resignation in his face that he was fifth going into the final rotation. These medals are surely up for grabs. Certainly the silver and bronze are. And that's not what he had hoped for.
Still a respectable gymnast, will not be forgotten about going into next year's Olympics. Always a player in the all-around and a heavy contributor to the Japanese team.
Yang Wei getting set to go. He is currently the Superman of gymnastics and has a shot at history here to be the first back-to-back world all-around champion in the history of men's gymnastics. Tomita's 13.975 drops him at this point from 5th to 9th and likely to drop further.
He looks so calm on the exterior, but read into him a little bit. He's very excited.
Of course, China, if they have one weakness as a team, it's here on the high bar.
And you can see it a little bit in his execution. Pay attention to his lower torso.
Oh,
no!
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. And I spoke too soon.
Oh. My goodness. Luckily, he's okay. Obviously, big deductions. Does he still have a big enough lead to manage to hold on to the gold medal position with a disastrous fall like that? Probably so.
Probably.
Wow. Now, that's not uncommon with those moves. Those pirouetting skills. If you don't get your hand on, it's see you later.
It's pretty much see you later. Some gymnasts can hang on and twist around and pull themselves back up into a free hip. Notice how like I was mentioning, the Chinese coach, they really tend to overspot these full twisting elements, or full pirouetting elements.
And ironically, he's standing right under there, but missed him when he did fly off.
Right.
I don't think the coach can really do anything for him. There's no way you can catch you. You go by so fast.
I honestly think it's more of a comfort factor for the gymnasts.
But it does expose that they are vulnerable on the high bar. Okay, this wasn't the way he had anticipated wrapping up this competition, no question. Fabian Hambuchen started off a little weak today, but he has worked his way up and finished with a big high bar routine. He will be a medalist today, there's no question about it. Does Yang Wei's score hold up? Let's calculate the deductions there. It's a half a point for falling. Some technical, pardon me, 8/10 for falling, excuse me.
For falling, and then he was very loose going into that skill.
Form errors, technical errors. 4.
He won't get credit for that skill. Luckily, he fulfilled all his category requirements, so missing that skill won't hurt him in terms of fulfilling the requirements. Like layman's terms, he really didn't need that skill. So if you eliminate that skill out of his routine, all you're really looking at is deductions.
He needs a 12.15 to maintain the lead.
I think he'll be able to pull that off.
No question about it. Now here's where it goes down to start values. He came into this competition with a substantial benefit because he has such high start values that he could afford a mistake.
That's right. It's kind of nice to have.
We didn't expect we'd see the mistake.
Right? No. Yeah. It's nice, you know. It's got to be a good feeling for him knowing that he has that insurance policy. It would be interesting to see next year if something like that were to happen. Could another gymnast actually surpass him? Had this been earlier in the competition, could have dramatically changed the outcome as well.
39.7 is his total start value, which is substantially higher than the rest of the field. So based on the quality of his gymnastics and the mastery of his gymnastics, he does buy himself some room for a mistake, but we didn't expect we'd see it.
No, I really didn't. I thought he was very calm and collected. However, these skills could have had nothing to do with his preparation whatsoever. Sometimes your hand just slips. And
13.6.
Got it.
So by more than a point, nearly a point and a half,
that's incredible.
He will hold on to his lead and become the first male gymnast to win back-to-back all-around titles in the history of the World Gymnastics Championships.
Congratulations.
Let's go back to 1954. Fabian Hambuchen acknowledges Yang Wei's superiority. Fabian will finish in the medals. Liang Fuliang and others congratulate him on what was a really kind of strange day of gymnastics.
It was very strange.
Start to finish.
Especially towards the end of the competition. I mean, the turn of events, the re-ranking of gymnasts.
Be very interested to see here in the final rotation, lots of juggling of the standings. Remember, coming into this rotation, it was Yang Wei, Kim Dae-jung, Liang Fuliang, Mizutori Tomita. Fabian Hambuchen was tied for 6th with Yan Tae-jung, but Hambuchen will work his way up onto the podium. Anton Fokin of Uzbekistan was in 8th. Jonathan Horton from the United States in 10th.
Here you go. You get a little recap.
Nice double-double. Now, Jonathan Horton, here's how the shuffling of this final rotation is pretty dramatic. Horton in 10th place, but he could earn himself a medal with a 15.85 on floor, which is, now that's a high score for floor.
That's a high score, but
this is a great event.
This is a great event for him. And in fact, 15.8, that would probably be one of his personal bests on this event. Doable, yes. We'll see if it happens. I know he can come very close to that score. Pull and dismount with a small hop.
15.625.
So close.
Not enough, so Horton will come incredibly close to a medal.
Got a taste of
on
it.
This unusual day of gymnastics. 4th place will...
Less than 2/10 out of a medal.
be the place for Horton. So there it is, and look at that. Yan Wei holds on. Fabian Hambuchen will get the silver. Hisashi Mizutori from Japan, the bronze, and Horton, by 0.2 of a point, finishes just out of the medals. Anton Fokin of Uzbekistan dropped from 8th to 16th. David Durrani from the United States will finish in 17th place, which is exactly where he was coming into the final rotation. Hard to believe the juggling of the standings in the 6th and final rotation. Fabian Hambuchen, to go with his bronze medal in the team competition with his German teammates, will earn a silver medal in the all-around. And when you're going up against Yang Wei, a silver medal is as good as gold, because Yang Wei is...
It absolutely is.
...solidly a favorite. Hambuchen, on a strange day of gymnastics, manages to pull off a silver medal.
That's right, and didn't even have his best meet. And you see where he ended up. He's definitely going to be a player in next year's Olympic Games, and Yang Wei knows it. He can't afford too many errors like that, and got away with this one.
He did, because the field was decimated in many ways. His strongest competitor, Tomita, was not on.
Right.
So others took advantage of this rather weak field, in fact, and lack of depth. There's really only about 8 guys who could really win a medal based on their complete mastery of gymnastics. And Jonathan Horton, member of the 4th place finishing U.S. team, a terrific improvement from their last year's 13th place, earns another 4th place, finishes out of the medals 2 days in a row.
And that, again, you know, just like their 4th place finish as a team for the U.S., to have an all-arounder that close to the podium, again, it's just very motivating for the entire delegation back here.
Well, it's hard to say. It was sort of an unusual day of gymnastics with some unexpected drama here at the end. I'm glad we got to discuss a lot of the issues about men's gymnastics these days and the current rules and code of points. And boy, did we get a flood of emails. I'm glad all of you sent us a note with your personal opinions about the state of gymnastics.
Probably talk more about it in a few of the other events if we have event finals to discuss more.
It's going to be hard to shut us up, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
We'll be back with the results when we come back. Getting set for the awards ceremony now here in the men's all-around competition. Day 3 of coverage here of the World Gymnastics Championships live from Stuttgart. A little bit later on, we're going to be having the women's all-around final. Looking forward to that competition. I expect it to be dramatic as well. For those of you watching at home, the women qualifiers, the top women qualifier from Romania, Steliana Nistor, and Nastia Liukin and Shawn Johnson from the United States qualified 2nd and 3rd. The top 3 separated by just 0.4 of a point in the qualifying rounds. The reigning world champion Vanessa Ferrari qualified in 5th. So expect to see a thrilling competition in the women's all-around later today. And then 2 more days of coverage of individual apparatus finals. And we'll see a lot more from these 3 gentlemen in particular.
Siegerehrung. 40. NBW Turnweltmeisterschaft 2007 Stuttgart. Mehrkampffinale Männer.
40th NBW World Artistic Gymnastics Championships 2007 in Stuttgart.
Bart, what does this mean for the Germans? When was the last time that the Germans had a all-around player, let alone an all-around medalist? It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been a while. Let me think back to people like Andreas Wecker and others.
Ebenso 90,850 Punkte Yang Fuliang, China. 7. Platz, 90,875 Punkte, Flavius Kocci, Rumänien.
You see the acknowledgement of the rest of the field.
Rafael Martinez, Spanien.
Martinez was in 6th place from Spain, a consistent top tenor in the all-around.
Auf Rang 5 mit 91,05 aus Südkorea, Kim Dae.
These guys look exhausted.
They do. Kim Dae-jung qualified only in 17th place into the final today. Had a shot at a medal, but finished on a weak event. Typically, a low-scoring event, the pommel horse, and dropped to 5th place. Jonathan Horton qualified in 9th, ended up in 4th, had a very, very good competition. And this has to be big motivation for him to see and experience 4th place in the team competition, 4th place in the all-around competition. I got to believe that's going to add a little fuel to his intensity between now and the Olympics to see how close he was to potential medal.
I think it's going to this is going to be a good stepping stone for him going into next year, and he's a smart guy. He's definitely going to use this the right way and the right form of motivation to possibly get on that podium in Beijing. It's good to see him finally put it together, though. He's clearly the best U.S. all-arounder that we have right now.
From Japan,
A lot of people waiting to see what happens with Paul and Morgan Hamm. Paul Hamm, the reigning Olympic champion, at home calculating his... will he be a factor? What do you think about Paul's chances? He certainly has the quality.
He does. You know, just like these other top gymnasts, he's very technically sound, and talent comes second to his work ethic, which is impeccable. So as an all-around gymnast, I mean, Paul actually has been working on his routines and rings, which was probably his weakest point, and the last quad is actually not so much as a weak factor this time around. So he's very balanced. The floor finalist, so he's really good on floor. Pommel horse, swings beautifully. Rings, I just mentioned. He's got a decent set to work with. Vault.
World champion and winner of the gold
6'6"
medal.
vault, more than likely. P-bars and high bar. Exceptional, so he's could give this guy a run for his money if he decides to go for it.
Paul Hamm, as you said, a very bright young man, and calculating his start values relative to Yang Wei's. Yang Wei had a big room for error coming into this competition because of the quality and the high level of difficulty in his routines that he can perform most often with consistency. Paul says he gives up a little bit to Yang Wei in terms of start value, but he hopes to contend with him in terms of execution and consistency. Right.
Paul's one of those guys that can go out there and rock 6 routines.
For the first place,
Yang Wei, as solidly as he is in first place, we saw his vulnerability on the high bar.
That's right.
Not only weak technique and not very high start value, but actually the ability to fall.
And not confident.
Not confident, right. With the coaches reaching in on every... So if there is one vulnerability for the Chinese team that can be exploited by their competitors, it would be there on the high bar. And in that case, you got to hand it to Paul Hamm.
Absolutely.
Who delivered a gut-wrenching routine in 2004 to nail that
storybook
Olympic gold medal.
For the third place,
Helmut Rau, Minister für Kultus, Jugend und Sport in Baden-Württemberg.
So this is just the first half of our coverage today. The women's all-around final coming up. The Americans feature Nastia Liukin and Shawn Johnson, who will figure prominently, hopefully, in that end result.
Interesting to see what happens on the women's side, too. Compared to the men, the Chinese have captured 2 gold medals out of the available 2 already.
Right. The American women won the team gold medal. China second, Romania third.
stand up for the national anthem.
We've talked all day long about the specialist aspect of gymnastics, particularly on the men's side. We'll be seeing demonstration of the best specialists in the world the next 2 days here on our coverage from WCSN as we focus on.
And it's important to note that Bart, we may not even see most of these competitors on any of those events in the event finals. That's just the nature of the sport, whereas in the past, the all-around champion you would more than likely see make 4, maybe 5 event finals. But given the nature of the sport now, a guy that's 3rd in the all-around or 2nd in the all-around may not make any event finals.
I'm happy to see that they played the entire Chinese national anthem today. The other day in the women's team competition, they only played half of the American national anthem. I mean, what could it take, a minute more just to finish the song? So I'm proud that probably somebody said, hey guys, just play the whole song. Give them the respect they deserve. There are the gold, silver, and bronze medalists, Yang Wei, Fabian Hambuchen, and Hisashi Mizutori. Unexpected drama in today's all-around competition.
Very much so.
Hambuchen, we'll see him again in the finals on the high bar where he's the top qualifier. Also on the vault. So he is not done, and he's had so far 2 bronze medals at these World Championships in his home country.
I imagine a lot of ice baths tonight. Guys jumping in all the way up to their necks.
A lot of beat-up gymnasts, there's no question about it. All right. We'll wrap up our coverage here and take a short break and get set for the women's all-around final. For all of you watching at home, please remember to tune in about an hour from now as we will get set to see who are the gold, silver, and bronze medalists in the women's most coveted individual award, the gold medal in the all-around. Hey, Raj, happy birthday to you, my friend.
Thanks for joining us. Bart.